You also said that the
I think it's still.
Okay, everyone, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Of the Economic Development Committee regular meeting of Tuesday, May 21st. Welcome, everyone. Can we please have a roll call?
Chair LaPlante,
Here.
Vice Chair Glassy.
Here.
Member Rutledge.
Here.
Member Covert.
Here.
Member Childress and Member Yu.
Here.
Okay, thank you so much. I move to approve our minutes from our last regular Economic Development Committee meeting from April 16th, 2024.
So moved. Second.
Wonderful. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. For my chairwoman's remarks, I would just like to welcome Lisa Shabbat with WorkNet DuPage, who's going to be giving us our presentation today. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about all the good work that they are always doing. So this is always a great presentation. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, thank you, Amy. And I move to receive and place on file item 6A 24-1530 incumbent worker training memo, Canary Engineering and Manufacturing.
Second.
And that's, we don't need
You
to
did
vote.
that.
I know, I know.
I did, so it's just receive and place on file, so that's done, thank you. And now, before we get to our change orders, I'm gonna have Lisa just give a little overview and just to help answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, I anticipate maybe there might be some questions on this. So these change orders are all for our WIOA 1Y or youth grant. As you guys probably know, that is the one of our 3 WIOA grants that we do typically subcontract some funds out to other youth service providers. So in the case of these 3 that we have before us today, Turning Point Autism Foundation serves young adults with autism. Last year was the first year of their contract, last program year. They were successful in their programming efforts, and each of our youth contracts, we typically allow for 3 renewals if the contract has been successful and if funds permit. And so in this case, they wanted to go for another year. They wanted to add some additional participants, and they had actually kind of underestimated their budget last program year. So they kind of were covering some costs on their own. So you will see that there's a 156% increase, which represents approximately $50,000 of increase to boost their services. Their contract is up the end of May, so this will allow them to keep moving forward. For the Parents Alliance 2 contracts, both their in-school youth and their out-of-school youth, this is actually their 2nd renewal, so this represents the 3rd grant year worth of service. So when you see like that $1,069,409 on 7C, that will be the total after 3 full program years of service. And they also serve young adults with disabilities and help them secure employment.
Wonderful. And then do you want to explain how sometimes this has to look this way just because of protocol for when these are written up?
Right, so this is just the standard verbiage that when Amy is putting the agendas together, we just basically plug in those dollar amounts, those percentages. So this is like boilerplate language that is in our legislative system.
Yeah, just so everyone's clear. Okay, thank you so much, Lisa, for that. Item 7A, I move to approve EDCO 1-24, increased purchase order 6457-1 serve issued to Turning Point Autism Foundation in the amount of $139,441, a 156.43% increase for a new contract amount of $228,582 and extend the contract through May 31st, 2025. This will allow the vendor to successfully continue serving youth in DuPage County with workforce innovation and opportunity grant funding. Thank you. And will you please, do we just need a consensus, a show of hands, or do we need roll call for this?
Just hands.
Just hands. Okay, wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Item 7B, EDCO-2-24, increased purchase orders 6027-1 serve issued to Parents Alliance Employment Project in the amount of $123,925, a 50% increase for a new contract amount of $371,775,000 and extend the contract through September 30th, 2025 to continue to successfully serve in-school youth in DuPage County.
Second.
Wonderful. Thank you for the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Item 7C, ED-CO-0003-24, increased purchase order 6028-1 serve issued to Parents Alliance Employment Project in the amount of $434,123, a 68.34% increase for a new contract amount of $1,069,409 and extend the contract through September 30th, 2025 to continue to successfully serve out-of-school youth in DuPage County.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. And now we get to our presentation. I'd like to introduce and welcome Lisa Shabbat from Workforce Development for her update.
Good morning. Okay, so before we start moving through the presentation, I just want to note, so as everybody knows, our division, the Workforce Development Division, we're 100% funded through the Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. On that note, I'm actually going to be talking about the first part of our presentation today about some non-WIOA initiatives and projects that we've been doing. In the August meeting, I'm slated to also present our program year ends June 30th. And so for the August meeting, I'd like to do a recap of all of our WIOA outcomes for the entire program year. So today I chose to kind of focus on some other non-WIOA projects and such that we're doing. Okay, so the first of those, as you guys recall, we did receive from the state some supplemental state funding that was by formula. So in DuPage County, we qualified for $65,164 of funding. And when we submitted the application for that, we could kind of do more or less whatever we wanted with it. I elected to continue the back to school, back to work initiative that we started in September 2023, which is a project that focuses on returning parents to the workforce. So parents who were, in most cases, stay-at-home parents who were out of the workforce for a significant amount of time and looking to return. So in September 2023, we ran the first series of this. It was a 3-session series held on consecutive Fridays. And it focused on what we had heard were their primary needs of this population, which was essentially job search skills. I'm rusty. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where to start. I'm not feeling confident. We held these in person at the center. We had a total of, I want to say, approximately 90 people overall that attended those sessions, and they were extraordinarily well received. So as a result of that, when these state funds came around, we chose to use these to actually do some funded training. And what we did in collaboration with College of DuPage was put together a computer soft skills program. So the average age, to give you an idea, the average, not age, years out of the workforce of the women that have attended the College of DuPage program, and one man who have attended the College of DuPage program, they've been out of the workforce on average 12 years. So that's a huge gap, and technology-wise, that is like an eon, right? So this program at College of DuPage covers everything from Microsoft 365, basic SharePoint, Zoom, Adobe, Teams, et cetera. Anything that, any kind of job you're basically going to step into, no matter what industry, you need to know the basics of using those applications. So we planned for a total of 3 cohorts. One took place in March, one in April, and one is the last week of May. Those are taking place at the college, and the feedback and testimonials from women that have attended them have been, again, very positive. They're finding it helpful. In addition to that, we're also providing individual funding assistance for some participants that have opted to go in more intensive route or have a more defined career goal. So we're funding things like Microsoft Office in more detail. We've funded a couple of individuals for digital marketing and WordPress, bookkeeping. We have a couple in the pipeline for information technology programs. We will definitely have this money spent down by June 30th, which is the hard deadline on it. And then we're going to be working to obtain outcome information from participants, which we will define as, are you actively job searching? Have you secured employment? Have you found these services helpful? There's no mandate from the state on what that reporting needs to look like, so it's kind of just self-designed. In September, we will be holding the second round of the Back to School, Back to Work series. The dates on that, as I was telling Member Galassi earlier, They're 95% certainty that it'll be on Thursdays this year instead of Fridays, September 12th, 19th, and 26th. And those will be held at the WorkNet DuPage Career Center in Lisle. I did submit this initiative for a NACO award. It has been a great partnership between our county board, especially the Economic Development Committee, and Member Glassy. WorkNet DuPage as workforce development for DuPage County, our economic development partners with Choose DuPage, and then the College of DuPage. So we'll see, you know, if we get awarded a NACO recognition award for that. And I wanted to note, because I think that it's relevant, the only personnel costs throughout this entire, going back to last September to now, have been from this grant, which is $5,164. This is not a WIOA funded initiative, although staff time that has gone toward it, including my own, is coming from the WIOA grant. So it's kind of that gray area of its workforce development, but it's not directly WIOA driven. And so there's minimal kind of personnel costs offset there. Next slide, please. This is another special project or initiative that I'm pretty excited about. We've been doing a lot of legwork on this one as well. This is the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant that the committee, you know, is aware that we have $100,000 total as part of the larger EECBG, which always reminds me of CBGB. So we have $100,000. Joy Hines from the Environmental and Sustainability Programs section of the Facilities Department approached us. Do we want to partner on this? And we were like, let's do it. This sounds really exciting. These are, again, not WIOA dollars. So $25,000 of our budget for that was to go toward a clean energy workforce development needs assessment skills gap analysis. We have an RFP out right now. Actually, we'll be winding down, I think, in a week or so. We did receive some questions on it, so hopefully we get some good bids for that. And then workforce training was the bulk of it for about $75,000 worth. We are planning on trying to spend the bulk of that money on actually paying trainers and trainees. And for this, you can include what's typically called like your wraparound or support services. So that's like barrier reduction. If an individual wants to go into a clean energy training program, but doesn't have transportation or childcare and so forth. There were no personnel costs written into this grant. So again, it's kind of one of these side projects, if you will. Next slide, please. So Jamie Brown, our workforce board manager, and I have been exploring many different options and have had many conversations with various employers and partners, other program providers. The best looking project so far for use of these dollars is a collaboration with NICOR and their subcontractor Walker Miller Energy Services. I love this because it's basically a public-private partnership or braiding of different funding streams. So they are running their 2024 novice workforce training and employment program starting in July 15th, I believe is going to be the start date. The classroom portion of this will take place at NICOR headquarters in Naperville. It is a training and job placement program to diversify and expand clean energy workforce, which is exactly the intention of the EECBG grant. It's really a really solid program compared to many of the others that we've looked into because they actually end up achieving industry credentials through the Building Performance Institute, which are marketable credentials, including what's called air control leakage credential, and among others. I think there's 3 or 4 total that they have the opportunity to achieve. At the conclusion of the classroom portion, they do a 2-week on-the-job training with a local employer or contractor. And they're paid a stipend throughout the course of the program as well, which is nice. But there are gaps in Walker Miller Energy Services budget for what they can do. So they can fund up to 12 possible participants. They do have some gaps as far as barrier reduction and supportive services, which aligns nicely with the EECBG funding. So things like transportation assistance, driver's license reinstatement costs, tools for the on-the-job training portion, et cetera. So I've listed there some of the ways that we're looking to use this. We anticipate it could come in anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000, depending on the unique needs of the participants. We might even be able to bring the total cohort up to 15 if they have enough qualified applicants to go into this, and we could use these dollars for that as well. So what I'm anticipating with this is I would like to get the committee's opinion on how this program sounds. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions. Because the next step would be putting a purchase order forth so that we can start supporting them in the rollout of this program.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Just a quick question, while they're going through this July program, would parents also have childcare on site?
I don't believe they will have childcare on site at NICOR, but we can offset the costs if that is a need of participants.
Because I was thinking there's no school in July, so
Yeah.
they would have their children with them.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how that will work exactly, but all I know is if they identify a way that they can send their child to the Park District program or what have you, we can cover the cost of that.
Would you like more feedback? Do you want to sit here and talk more, or would you like to wait and hold questions at the end?
I defer to you.
Does anyone else have comments about this, about what you think about investing in this kind of a program moving forward? Yes, member you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just really excited about it, especially when I see transportation assistance and childcare assistance, because you and I have had conversations about how we just need to expand,
Right.
those kinds of programs. And that it's actually, partnered with achieving industry credentials and all this other stuff. This is really exciting. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, and we had the idea for the driver's license reinstatement cost, and we started looking into that because on their application, it asks if you have a valid if you've had moving violations, if you have a valid driver's license. I think none of us would want to see somebody who's really eager to do this, but has outstanding fines or things, to let that be the reason why they can't progress. So in theory, we should be able to offset those costs through this. The one question that I have with Walker Miller, their contract with NICOR is pertaining to the Aurora region, because that's one of the state designated like workforce hubs for clean energy, for whatever reason. So I want to make sure that there are, at least that the bulk of the participants that we're, purchasing on the job training tools for, what have you, are DuPage County residents. I'm not sure the degree of control that we'll necessarily have over that. What we know about our workforce in this area, of course, is that many people that work in DuPage don't necessarily live in DuPage, vice versa. So because it is a metro region, but I'm not sure what, how the board feels about that. Time is sort of the essence with this, that if we are going to move forward, I do need to start getting the wheels in motion so that we can start taking invoicing from them. That would be an item that will be coming forth on, I would imagine, the June Economic Development Committee.
So next month. Okay. Yes, Vice Chair Glatzy.
Thank you. On that note, I would like to focus as much as we can on DuPage County residents. And as it pertains to this training, I really like the specificity of it. Like, I think when people are being trained in a very specific field like this with these types of credentials, it makes them very employable, which I applaud. And if it's, environmentally focused, I think is wonderful. So I would be supportive for sure.
Great, thank you. And I did share this so far in DuPage County, the climate and economic justice maps that we have access to. 2 of the big areas are West Chicago, 3 of the big areas are West Chicago, Addison, and then that unincorporated Willowbrook pocket. So I did share the application for this with the mayors of West Chicago and Addison, with Amber Quirk with the ROE, so that the high schools can push it out. Some of our community partner agencies as well. And then with Avanath Management, the community manager at the Acclaim at Hinsdale Lake, so that they can email blast it out to the residents of that apartment complex. So I'm hoping that generates a lot of applicants from those target areas.
That's wonderful. I totally think that this focus, just like our Back to Work program, this is utilizing and tapping into part of our workforce that we absolutely need to welcome back in. And we would be missing out on wonderful employees and potential if not. So I think that this is a fantastic investment. That's how I would look at this, that we should be investing in our future workforce like this, especially this targeted demographic. Okay,
Yeah, thank you very much for the.
sure. Member Rutledge.
I just wanted to let Lisa know that they have changed the title of Wilbur Corners to Hinsdale Lakes Terrace
Yeah.
to try to rebrand there, so we're not using
Wilbur Corners, okay. Yeah, and it's, the actual apartment complex is now a claim at Hinsdale Lake, which I wasn't aware that they switched to a claim at this point too, but their new community center is
Nice.
gorgeous.
Good.
Yeah, we went out there this fall. Okay, so then that, like I said, that purchase order will likely be coming through on your June agenda.
Fantastic.
Moving on, so this is a noteworthy national kind of piece of, oh, we're waiting. Oh, I skipped a slide here, JTED. Just a note, quick note on this. Again, you likely recall I submitted an application to DCO back in January for $738,867, and I'm still awaiting a response on that. Nobody has heard yet. The priority populations for that grant were low to moderate income people, as well as those with criminal justice involvement and immigrants, refugees. That grant application included barrier reduction funds that were intended to, again, kind of flexibly address in a quick fashion, different sorts of barriers or challenges that the participants have. There could potentially be some challenges with the barrier reduction. Being that we don't have, I know recently at the finance meeting, the concept of the credit cards was brought up. This would be an area where we would be hindered in using barrier reduction funds. For example, if we wanted to reinstate someone's driver's license, like we were just talking about through this program, you have to pay online. And so I have a WorkNet DuPage card that it's my personal card, but I only use it for expenses, incidentals and things. But I never use it for a job seeker or client cost because I feel like that's a red line. It's not appropriate to be funding people's training or paying people's driver's license fees and things. And so this would be an area where we might have a challenge because you can't necessarily secure an invoice and pay a check to everybody. Amy's nodding her head because it usually falls on her to try to get invoices from people or from vendors, from training providers, et cetera. So just a note that this would be one of those areas where that issue comes into play if we should be awarded these dollars. Next slide, please. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, this is the legislative timeline for the WIOA reauthorization, which has been fits and starts for years now in Congress, but there actually was HR 6655, which was introduced in December, and it did pass, as you can see, on a committee on a bipartisan vote, and then it passed the House really with a bipartisan vote this past April, and it's now in the Senate for their consideration. This is called the Stronger Workforce for America Act. And what is noteworthy, primarily what people across the country, my counterparts and all of the national organizations, our state organizations, what people are most kind of pushing back against with the original version of this bill is that there's a 50% training requirement. We in the state of Illinois do have a 50% training requirement, but training is defined quite broadly so that many different types of costs count towards that 50% requirement. What this bill stipulates is that it would really only be a select few types of service, such as funding you for training, giving an employer a training grant. It's very narrow, and that would have implications. So that is something that our Illinois Workforce Partnership, which is our statewide association, the National Association of Workforce Development Boards, everybody's kind of pushing out letters, selected officials on some of these key elements of this. But I wanted to point out that 50%, because here would be some of the potential implications of such a change at the actual legislative level. Next slide, please. So we do a number of things that fall into what are considered like career services or job search services. These are things apart from us funding individuals for job training programs. The bulk of our funding always goes towards funding individuals for job training programs. And again, I'll be getting into the details of that at the August meeting, but we do a lot of things in addition to, and they fall kind of under this umbrella of career services. So one example would be our career conversations. These are events that we hold 3 to 4 times a year We have a panel of HR reps there from various companies. They provide kind of inside information on how to job search, as well as information about their opportunities within their company. And then at the end of that panel, they're there to do on-site recruiting. The average attendance of these events is roughly 80 people, which if you've been over to our center and attended any of our events, you know that's a full house. That's a big, full room, conference room. And most recent event was just this past May 8th. We had 90 people attend. DuPage County was there recruiting and on the panel. Our very own DuPage County, as well as Edward Don, Abrasive Form, Eaton, and Now Foods. So we get great employer engagement on these. They love participating. Our own DuPage County HR was so pleased with the experience and happy to be there. So these are successful events. This is one example of the type of thing that
Whatever we do, we'll try to have two.
scaled back if,
But we probably.
okay, sorry. I was like, am I the only one here? So those would be the types of things that would need to potentially be scaled back with that 50% requirement, because your staff are going to have to be zeroed in on only these select services, and you might need to even reduce staff headcount to meet that 50%. Next slide, please. Another example would be Let's Talk Job Search, which we started over a year ago. This is a job search discussion group. It's kind of a not a support group, but it sort of functions that way. We keep it extremely positive. It is not a grievance airing session. We hold open to the public meetings twice a month. Average attendance is about 32 people. And we also have guest speakers come in. So we've had recently Andrew Fox from Department of Labor come in to talk about employment law in Illinois. We've had a couple people from the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, out to talk about knowing your rights. Jackie Throop, a colleague of mine from HR Source, came out to talk about navigating modern business attire nowadays with remote work and how do you dress when you go for an in-person interview. So it's very popular. We've had success stories of people getting jobs that have only attended these events. They haven't received $1 for actual vocational training. They don't need it because they have the skill set. They just need kind of that job search element. So again, across the country, really, people are pushing back on that element because we don't want these types of things to fall by the wayside. Next slide. We're also partnering with the Sheriff's Office in just DuPage. I have staff that go into the jail and actually meet with the individuals that are currently incarcerated in both a group setting and a one-on-one setting to develop relationships with them so that when they're released, they kind of hit the ground running with services with us. They're doing things like considering what their skills are and how any skills that they have might transfer into different careers. They're starting basic resume prep. We're actually going, one of my counselors will be going into the jail to do a full initial appointment like we would do in our office with an individual. So this is working out really well. Our business service team is developing relationships with companies that are open to hire, truly open to hiring, not just paying lip service to that, but will actually hire these individuals. So this has been another kind of exciting thing. And the JTED grant, if awarded, would allow for more barrier reduction, as I said, for these participants as well. Next slide. In October, we are partnering with several organizations, including Parents Alliance, Turning Point Donka, Ray Graham, Little Friends, et cetera, for a big Disability Employment Month job fair. That is actually incorrect. It's going to be held at Northern in Naperville. And the date is TBD at this point. They're kind of trying to pin that down officially, but I will certainly let the committee, keep the committee apprised of that. And next slide. So looking ahead, June, possibly July, no, we don't have a July meeting, but the Walker Miller Energy Services, as I mentioned, that would be coming through. We need to establish our WIOA PY24 grant. We anticipate finding out what our allocation will be by the end of this week. I was hoping I would know before today, but they're running late this year. In August, I'll be doing the program year 23 year in review. September is Workforce Development Month, which I think is noteworthy. And then we'll also be doing the Back to School, Back to Work series and another career conversation event. And then October is the job fair for individuals with disabilities. And I think that will conclude my update.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. Member go out.
I have a quick comment and then a quick question. As far as your relationship with Just DuPage, I know that it's working because I do have a success story, a gentleman that I've met from visiting numerous times. His name is Gilbert, was released like 3 weeks ago and has already secured a job with Rabine Construction. And he said that he felt very, very comfortable with all the preparation that you have given him. So he was.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you.
Of course. And then I did just want to ask about I know you and I have had a lot of conversations about this, but when you do, like when DuPage was at your career fair, like do they report back if they hire anybody from those fairs?
Well, I'm sure our colleagues here will let us know. The other employers they're typically employers that we have a good relationship with. So we do reach out to them and inquire if they've interviewed anybody from that event, if they've hired anybody. We don't have any information on this most recent event yet.
Okay.
But hopefully they will report that that something has happened. One of the reasons we shifted to this model versus holding the big job fairs is because it's hard to track outcomes. It takes a ton of time and resources to get like 20 employers in a room. And typically the outcomes are it's difficult to track down. But this way the job seekers at least leave having gotten a lot of great information, if nothing else, and they've had the chance to do some on-site recruiting. But if they don't get called for an interview, at the very least, they've learned some really solid strategies to take with them.
Yeah.
Great.
Anyone else have any questions or feedback? Okay, this is wonderful. This is exciting. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
We look forward to this. This is great work for people who really need it and deserve it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, old business. Does anyone have any old business? Seeing none. Any new business? Seeing none. Okay, then this meeting is adjourned until next month. Thank you, everyone.